Today, I want to talk about a really cool watch that I'm wearing today. Today, I'm wearing this 1973 Caravelle Shark Hunter. The thing about Caravelle is we always relate Caravelle to Bulova because, of course, they're very related. What happens with Bulova and Caravelle is the same story that happened with Rolex and Tudor. Back in the 60s, Timex was selling a lot of Timex watches because they were good watches and they were cheap watches, and Bulova couldn't really compete because Bulova watches were higher quality watches, but of course, watches were getting mass produced and Timex was selling a lot of watches. So Bulova decided to create the company Caravelle, which is basically almost like a Bulova, but it has a different movement. And it has a Japanese movement that is higher quality than the Timex movement. It has this one, in this case, this one has 17 jewels, which is a high quality movement. They do have the same DP, what is it, the 11 DP movement. They do have this movement with 7 jewels also, but this one happens to have the 17 jewel movement. So back then, Bulova decided to create Caravelle, which was more economic watches that they could sell to a wider market. Of course, Bulova back then was a high quality watch. Still is. Well, the old Bulovas are still high quality watches, so they had high quality, and they needed to lower their quality to sell more watches, and that's where they came up with Caravelle. Now, if you don't know this, Caravelle means it's like a small boat or a small vessel for traveling the ocean. So that's what a Caravelle means. So just interesting, knowing about Caravelle. So what happens is they do have the Bulova Sea Hunter, which is is it the Sea Hunter? Yeah, the Sea Hunter. And this happens to be the same watch, but it's a Caravelle, so it does have the 11 DP movement. I do really like this watch. It has a orange seconds hand, that I really like. If you can tell, the minute hand has a little bit of damage to it, but in general, the watch is in really good condition. I don't think this watch ever got worn or went to the ocean. You could still see the chamfering is really good on it. The edges are still polished. The top is sanded, and it's got no scratches. It does have a bidirectional bezel, so the bezel turns both ways. It does have a signed Bulova crown. I don't know if you guys can see that. So in general, it's a really nice watch. The dimensions on this watch, it's 43 millimeters from the top of the lugs to the bottom of the lugs. Between lugs, it's 19 millimeters, and it happens to be 37 millimeters wide, and it's about 11 and a half millimeters tall. So it's not a really tall watch, but it is of course a hand winding watch. So this is not an automatic watch. You do have to hand wind it, and that's the reason why it's not as thick as other watches. What's really interesting about this watch is they call this the 666 or the Devil Diver. It's interesting that they didn't just go 600 meters. They went 200 meters. They went 666 feet. And let me show you a watch here, just in comparison. I have a Tudor Black Bay 58, which is rated for the same depth. Of course, a Black Bay 58 is a more modern watch with a screw-down crown and all kinds of stuff. But the engineering behind a watch like this watch, behind the Caravelle, is really, even though it doesn't have a screw-down crown or it's a plexi, it was still designed to go 666 feet, which is a little bit over 200 meters of water depth. And it's really interesting. Now, this watch is only 37 millimeters wide. Of course, a Black Bay 58 is 39. So it's just a little bit wider. But for today's standards, and the Black Bay is of course longer. You can see it's longer from the top to bottom. So I just always think that these old vintage watches are always really amazing. There's always a lot to learn, and there's always a story behind these. This one, usually when I get an old watch, I have in my mind, I create a story. Maybe this watch went many places. In this case, this watch to me seems to never went anywhere. I think this watch just probably sat in somebody's drawer, or in my mind, it's a watch. Somebody was given this watch, and they probably didn't like divers watches, or if it's from the 70s, maybe somebody thought it was too big and they didn't like it. Right now, for today's standards, it seems like a small watch, even though I know the 70s had humongous watches, but not everybody liked divers watches. So that's why I think it could have been a watch that was too big for somebody and they said, it's just too big, or I don't like it. Or it does have a 19 millimeter between lugs, which is kind of interesting. And I did get this watch with this Tropic 19 millimeter strap. So I don't know if this strap came with this watch. I have no way of knowing, but this is how I got it. And it's just an interesting watch. Caravelle is always an interesting story. The movements are high quality movements. They're Japanese movements, but they are really high quality movements. They're not the same as a Bulova. A lot of people think it's the same. Once in a while, you'll find some Caravelles that do have, the same movements as Bulovas, but in general, Caravelle has a Japanese movement, but the case is usually high quality. I did find a lot of base metal Caravelles, but in this case, this is 100% stainless steel, so it's a nice watch. It's not a very expensive watch, but every time I wear this watch, people always ask me, well, what is that? Well, what do you know about it, or what year is it? So I do know it's a 1973. I don't think this watch ever went underwater. Of course, it can't anymore. It's just, I know the gaskets are no good anymore. And I've had this watch for, I want to say about 7-8 years, and I've never serviced it. The watch keeps perfect time. Usually inside the case, you'll find a lot of watchmakers, they put their marks when they service a watch because of the warranties. This case back has no marking, so I don't know if it ever got serviced. I just opened it for the first time right now, and the woman's seems perfectly clean. So I think this watch just probably sat in a safe somewhere or somebody's drawer or something. But now it's mine, and now I get to do a YouTube video and show you guys this amazing 1973 Sea Hunter Caravelle. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.